Hey, what it do, YouTube? It's your boy Q, and we are 6 weeks away from ALGS Split 2 Playoffs, which means we have plenty of time to debate and speculate who's going to be our top performers come land. But that also means we have International Scrims starting up. And during the first block of Scrims, we saw Moist Esports absolutely feasting, winning the first 3 games on Storm Point, going back to back. And then when they got the World's Edge, they won one more time, just to show everyone it doesn't matter which map you're on, there's a good chance you're gonna get wet.
I can taste the bubbles.
And what's crazy is this is not new for Moist Esports. I mean, within the last few months, we've seen them win 2 regional finals in the ALGS, an APAC North versus an APAC South showdown, and the Do You Titan Cup, all of which have been done underneath that match point format. This is a team that shows not just the ability to consistently play with their quick rotation and patient zone play style, but also the ability to frag out along the way. I need you to understand that they do this all while playing within a region that we often see other teams try and play a little more edge heavy. I mean, they don't force kills. They read zone, they rotate early, and they hold great positions. Their pop-off games are usually due to reading zone very early and catching several teams rotating their way in. And don't let that make it sound like the dudes don't frag out. I mean, they did have the most kills within the region, averaging over 5.5 kills per game. I mean, naturally though, when you're finishing top 3 in over a third of your game, you're going to pick up some kills along the way. And while Moist have slowly gotten more credit from fellow competitors and even Apex analysts over the course of the season, garnering not just top 10 or even top 5, but top 3 attention, there still seems to be a large amount of people that tend to overlook this squad when they're talking about best teams in the world. You would have figured people would stop sleeping on the APAC South region after Dark Zero hoisted 2 trophies before they moved to NA.
We do not care.
And if they weren't paying attention before, Moist wasted little time putting the lobby on notice in Game 1, landing at Command Center, getting a beacon showing them that northern ring, meaning that a quick rotate would put them right where this game would be ending, just east of Thunderwatch. What really impressed me early was seeing just how well the team had been prepped. I mean, being able to call out teams just simply from their compositions.
Almost cracked. Cracked one.
Broken enemy taking fire. Reloading.
Crypto team, Crypto Gibby. APAC North team, right?
Fun.
Yeah.
I would love to show you more about how they played Game 1 super duper patient, just poking away to upgrade their evos across the board, but I don't want to give away the juice as far as some of their map positioning. Moist, love you boys.
Come over here and kiss me on my hot mouth.
But once they entered the fight, the coordination was honestly an absolute thing of beauty. Absolutely frying on 200 ping nonetheless. You'll notice that they had no KP before this fight, just that chip damage to upgrade their shields during the middle part of this game.
We gotta just do it left side. Side down.
Textbook Moist. I mean, we're talking about moving in with precision, taking out Aurora, picking apart the lobby team by team.
One bang one. Dead.
Nice.
70 on horizon. In the distance. Queuing.
We got it. Wipe this close.
Okay.
Looking then to the north, but making sure not to overextend while wiping out MDY White.
He didn't have to push. Come back.
There's nothing here. Okay, come back.
Come back.
I killed one.
And once we were down to that top 3, they had plenty of loot boxes to be able to get through to make sure they were looted and booted for this last fight. And since the other 2 teams would initiate fight with one another, Moist had the opportunity to be able to walk up and clean this thing up. The problem is they would have to find themselves a spot that was safely within this zone just in case this fight took too long. They then made the decision to play the aggressor, swinging on the solo to the left, that way they can turn to their right knowing that it's a full 3v3, fully healthy, and rocking 3 red evos. Or at least they thought it was a 3v3. They had no idea that this was a duo. Otherwise, they probably would have pushed on this team a whole lot sooner. But I do like the play call to play this really tight and play this thing patient, especially with the zone that would eventually become their friends, pushing that duo out from behind the rocks. Nothing flashy for Game 1, but that would start off the day 1 for 1. Game 2, same thing. Nothing flashy, literally playing it low-key into the last ring. And then I love this play from Waltzy with this nade, especially being able to hold off this angle to the left. what that does is forces the other two teams into one another, into an engagement between high ground and low ground within the tower. This gives Moist the ability to rotate to the right now, at this point, basically for a free dub. And even with Pricey and Empty getting a little greedy, pushing into the storm, Walty's still able to clean things up, and that would make Moist 2 for 2. And in game 3, lather, rinse, repeat. Quick rotation out of the command center, and while we're talking about it, I feel like I would be doing a little bit of a disservice, not mentioning that it was 3 Northern Zone. But even with that being said, you gotta capitalize on your opportunities when you get them. So if you're a Northern team, you gotta make sure those Northern Zones count, and there were other Northern teams that could have won, but they didn't. And if you haven't watched Moist POV during scrims, honestly, you're not really missing much. We're talking about literally rotating very, very early, and then just a lot of Waltzy jumping around and emoting, crackling his knuckles. And don't you dare rotate towards them, though, because they will hold you off with some nice team shots.
Boring.
But as much as I love to joke and say that they're boring to watch, at least during those first 4 rings, once that final zone starts to close in and it's time to lock in, Moist really shines at their best. Although this time, Walty does kind of throw with a little bit of overextending, almost throwing away the 3-peat, but Empty able to clutch it out.
Empty and Moist! Back to back to back!
And when the lobby took the world's edge for the back half of scrims, it was a lot of the same story, different battleground. Landing an overlook, rotating so quickly. I mean, just look at this. They don't really look to take any fights. They definitely aren't worried about popping off shots though, and they aren't staying around to get third-partied either. They know that this thing is heading towards the tree, and they want to be one of the first teams there. And again, low and slow, just like a good roast. Chilling in the building that they got off that early rotation, and then when it's time to make their move in on Alliance, swift and deadly, able to wipe out the squad without dropping anyone. And once again, finding themselves in the top 3. They even had themselves a little bit of the zone this time, but the only problem is they end up getting sandwiched and kind of focused by both squads, so they would not be able to pull off the 4-peat. But a 3rd place being the worst finish thus far in the day, definitely a great place to be in 4 games into scrims. And if the lobby thought that that would end the run for Moist to start off international scrims, they were sadly mistaken. Another Northern Zone in game number 5, which would mean another quick rotate for the squad out of Overlook on their way to Skyhook, doing a great job of utilizing the balloons in their Valkless comp. And at one point, they would look to rotate towards Trials and see if they could take up some space there, but they would inevitably need to invest all 3 ults in order to pull out and be able to get to safety. And it's back to that typical Moist game plan, laying low until that 4th ring starts closing in and they start to catch players out in the open. It is routine for this team, and they really put on a clinic, pushing to get those kills but making sure that they never truly overextend. And then at that point, they just hug this mountain, rotating their way in, putting on fire on the team that's up in the tower, putting immense pressure onto that squad. Knowing that these last 2 teams are essentially up on top of one another, Moist gets to vibe, and they have all sorts of resources needed to get ready for this last fight. And I gotta be honest, what I really love here is that Walty thinks outside the box and throws his Horizon Q under the team in the tower.
What if I throw my Q right there and send these guys out of the tower? Thoughts?
100 on that guy. Right, you want?
Okay. I don't make it.
You can see him consider it at one point, reposition, and then executes it to a T. And to Walty's surprise, it worked, which causes a whole bunch more chaos in this last fight.
Anyone need a pick me up?
Got him! Got him! Cracked him! No!
And with Moist as a full trio, they would see Knock go down with what appears to be a solo at the top of the tower, making this yet another dub for Moist Esports. And while the boys at Moist wouldn't finish top 3 in game number 6, they would still finish top 6, falling to Dark Zero in a tough 3v3 to end their day, which would have them sitting comfortably at the top of the standings. And while I can already imagine the people getting ready to flood the comments down below telling me these are just scrims and they don't really matter, these are the first wave of scrims, getting ready for this upcoming LAN. These are where teams are trying to establish their drop spots and prove to other teams that they should not be contested. So if anything, this first wave of scrims should tell us more than like these scrims that are going to be mid-month in June with a whole nother month to go until LAN. But I want to know your thoughts, YouTube. Is Moist on a mission to prove to everyone in the ALGS that they're next up to hoist a trophy? Or is it still too early to tell?
On the next Dragon Ball Z.
I know Nicewig sure seemed impressed, as was I. If it's your first time through over here on the channel, what up? I do almost daily esports news, updates, interviews, you name it. So with LAN season quickly approaching, make sure you're staying up to date with everything ALGS. Go ahead and smack that subscribe button and turn those notifications on. That way we can catch y'all right back here. Make sure y'all tell somebody to tell somebody to tell somebody about it. And don't forget, man, with everything crazy going on in the world today, be true, be you, be sincere, game hard and love hard. All right, y'all? It's your boy Q, signing out.